So I got the first pass done on the highest setting, and this is what we're left with. Isn't that amazing? And this tiny little lawn. We've got this new lawn that's been in for a few weeks now, but it's not looking super great. What we'd like to do is get this lawn looking super sharp for summer. So today I want to share with you a simple 3-step process to take this lawn from where it is now to a vibrant green yard. When we first put the sod down, there was already some signs that there was some dying grass, and that thatch, you can kind of see the tannishness here, has sort of disappeared, but that's because a lot of the new growth is coming up through and making the lawn look better than it really is. This section of grass was actually the top of the sod pile, and I think the heat and some of the wind dried the rolls out, and so overall it just looks terrible. It might look like some of your yards out there, which is why you're watching this video, but we're going to work together and get this to look super amazing. You may be watching this video because you've already tried lots of things like fertilizing, watering, changing your watering, and well, the yard just looks terrible. We do have some patches that look really nice, like this big lush green patch here, but that was actually in the middle of the sod pile, and so it was pretty protected from the wind and the humidity and things during transport. We want the rest of the yard to look a lot like that. So to make this process of removing the thatch super easy, we picked up a Thatcher scarifier. This is basically a powered thatching rake. You could do all this by hand, and we thought about doing that, but instead we're going to use the power tool version first. Let me show you how it works. So this is essentially a thatching rake with a motor, and it pulls the dead grass out. You are going to get some damage of the living grass. It will be very minimal. This tool is about maximum productivity, especially if you have a large lawn. You pretty much don't have an option but to use a powered thatcher. This machine actually has a secondary purpose, which is what's called a scarifier. It kind of has like this blade looking cylinder, and this is designed to disrupt the root structure and make it easier for new growth to come in. We're going to do some overseeding and fertilizing later after we kind of break up all this dead grass and give this a fresh start. We're not probably going to use the scarifier today because this is not a highly established lawn, but if you have something that has a really dense root structure and it'd be very hard for new seed and new growth to get started, you may want to do this additional step. It's going to make the lawn look worse first, and it's probably pretty scary, but over time you'll be able to get new seed, new growth, and your lawn will look amazing. So if you're looking for one of these tools, they do both. These Thatcher machines do have a bagging system, a lot like a lawnmower, with this little door that lifts up. The problem is, especially on an established lawn, you're going to generate so much thatch that it'll probably overwhelm the bag. And the general consensus is the bags suck. So it's okay to run the machine without the bag. Just plan on having to have a method to clean that up later. We'll give a leaf blower a try. It should work just fine. You want to kind of create these piles of thatch around the lawn, gather it all up, and then of course dispose of it. Makes great compost. If you look really closely, you can see that there's new growth trying to come through, but look at all this dead, dry grass. And all it's doing is taking up space here. In fact, if we were to get aggressive and the wind blew, it almost might just knock it all out. So what we're looking for is probably something like that. And what we want to do is really encourage this growth that's trying to come through underneath. A lot of times, don't panic, but when you mow the first time, your lawn is going to look worse. You're probably accustomed to this. It looks good, and then you mow it and it's like, wow, my lawn looks terrible. Because what's happening is all this new growth is sort of masking all this dead, rotting grass that's down here at the base. We want to get all that out of there and encourage new, vibrant, strong roots.
So the first step in this process is actually to give the lawn a good mow, and we're going to mow down lower than we probably normally would, which will kind of shock the grass a little bit, but it'll allow the thatcher easier access to that dead grass. So we'll give everything a quick mow. The reason we're doing this now is it's very early in the season and we want to have a great luscious lawn all summer long. I don't know if I would do this during the middle of the season. I probably would wait until the following spring, but you can make that decision for you. We just happen to have some cool weather coming up, and it'd be a great chance to get this done while the grass is dry and get everything all tidied up. That way the cool weather and then a spell of rain will give the lawn a nice refresh.
Okay, so we're ready for thatching. You can tell that some of the areas that looked super green before, well, now they have visible thatch. We cut down some of that tall growth. What we're gonna do is do this in 3 directions. We'll probably go lengthwise, crossways, and then diagonal. We'll kind of see how things are looking, if we're getting good production or not. This thatcher has different depth settings, and because this is fairly new grass, we're not gonna get super aggressive with it. We'll start with maybe like a medium to high setting and kind of see how it's working. If it's working super good, we'll probably leave it. And then later we could come back once the grass is more established and do it again. So I'm about halfway through the first pass, and you can kind of get an idea of what's coming out of here. I mean, look at all this dead grass. Pretty amazing that all that is hiding. And you can see already that the amount of exposed soil is increasing. There's still a bit of thatch down there deeper. I'm not sure if we want to be that aggressive with this new sod. But just look at the amount of dead material that's sitting here, keeping this existing living material from spreading roots and growing healthy and strong. There's areas like this right here, you can tell there's quite a bit of thatch still in there, and it makes me think that this is going to take some deeper thatching to get that stuff out of there. This stuff is just the stuff that's literally sitting here dying on the surface, which just shows you how simple this process really is. So we have an area we haven't thatched yet, and then this is what we've been working on thatching. Look at all that. It's incredible the amount of material there is. So I got the first pass done on the highest setting, and this is what we're left with. Isn't that amazing? And this tiny little lawn, I think is about 650 square feet. This is super dry. So I'm doing this at a time before the sprinklers have ran and before we get rain, which you can kind of sense why there's some urgency to get it started. Let me kind of show you how bad some of the spots actually look once you remove all that dead grass. You might remember that over here was actually pretty green, and now it's not looking so lush and green. In fact, like I said, I'm running this on the highest setting, so there's still a fair bit of thatch kind of hiding in here that we could probably get out. But spots like this, there's no grass there. This whole patch basically doesn't have any grass at all. Once you remove all the dead stuff, there's a little bit of living material in there, but we'd like to get all of this stuff gone, get down to some soil, and then move on to the next steps. This whole section we knew would look pretty bad, but it's amazing how much material just came out on the first pass. You can imagine if I used the bagger on this thatcher, I would just be here all day. Okay, we're gonna increase the depth, and then we're gonna make 2 more passes and see where we're at. All right, second pass is done, and would you believe it? We got more dead grass that time than we did on the first pass. Now, the first pass I went on setting 0, and you know, you would think we're getting a lot of live material in here, but I actually think that this is just as much dead grass as the first pass there. And there's a little bit of green in there. You know, there's a little bit of live material, but the ratio is not bad. It's not scary. And look how fluffy this stuff is. It's super dry. I feel like the grass is starting to look much better. You know, there's a little bit of dirt showing here. You know, something that seed could get down into and potentially germinate, which is what we want to see. Get all that stuff in there, break up the root system, and make it ready to grow fresh grass. In my experience, the thatcher can only pick up so much thatch at one time, so it's not necessarily a situation of changing the depth setting every single time, as much as it is making a pass, taking out this much dead grass, and then just going back over the same area. You can go diagonal, you know, long-wise, width-wise, something like that to kind of change up the orientation, kind of the way you mow. Third pass is done, and crazy, we got another wheelbarrow on the same setting. The leaf blower has done an amazing job of really fluffing the grass up, because what we want is the seed that we're going to put down later to get good soil contact. But you can kind of tell you're starting to be able to see through the blades of grass. Of course, it doesn't look great, but that's all part of the process. And of course, we're shocking the grass right now. But the next plan is to overseed and fertilize. But I don't want to do that this afternoon because it's a little bit breezy, windy, and it's pretty hot. I'd rather wait till morning, and we're supposed to get some rain over the next couple of days, which will be a great time to seed and then fertilize. I got all the thatching done yesterday. I ended up doing 4 full passes before I decided that's probably good enough for now. We've got a calm, cool morning, and we're starting to get kind of a gentle rain right now, which means we're ready to move on to steps 2 and 3 of this restoration process. Picked up a couple of things. One is a Kentucky bluegrass seed. In your situation, you're going to want to check with your local feed and grain or landscape supplier and figure out what the best seed mixture is for your location, and maybe identify the type that's in your lawn already. So we're going to be using a bluegrass mix. We also picked up some Summertime Turf Builder fertilizer. When I bought the seed, I was thinking to myself originally that we probably would almost kind of spot seed and focus on the patchy areas and maybe let everything else sort of fend for itself. But it's almost feeling like there's some areas where we're gonna have to kind of just broadcast seed the whole entire area. And depending on your lawn condition, if your lawn's looking really patchy and really sparse after this process, you're probably just going to overseed the whole thing instead of being discriminate. I mean, we have some areas where we're going to need some heavy seed, like there's just very little grass in here at all, where over here we actually have a pretty good base of grass. The fertilizer will probably get that to look pretty good over the next couple of weeks. A key to doing this with the rain is a gentle rain. If you've ever tried to apply grass seed and you get like any kind of heavy rainfall, all of a sudden the grass will literally just float to the surface. You could use a lawn roller or something like that to try to kind of push it down into the dirt. In my experience, it is rough. So better to do it when there's a gentle rain or even just after the rain is complete. Because this lawn is fairly small, we're just going to use this small handheld spreader. If you have a large lawn or you're doing this on a larger project, you're probably going to want to get a wheeled spreader, and obviously you're going to use a lot more product. These are adjustable. There's actually a small adjustment setting here, and the fertilizer actually gives us the setting that we should be using for this particular product. So we're going to set this up correctly, and then we just have to spread it out. Got everything fertilized and seeded, and this rain is amazing. It's the first rain we've had in over a month. So hopefully we get 3 or 4 days of cool weather, a nice soaking rain. If this wasn't the case, we probably would water this in with our normal watering cycle, a long, deep water. Maybe keep it wet every single day, maybe even a couple times a day, depending on the heat, where you're at, or the humidity. Definitely don't want the seed to dry out. So there's really nothing to do now. Just need to wait a couple weeks. So I'll check back with you then. Well, it's been a couple of weeks and the yard is looking amazing. For the first week or so, things didn't really change much. It all looked about like it did after we completed the thatching, and I started to kind of wonder, boy, is this going to work? And then all of a sudden, one day, I'm telling you, in one day, this yard looked completely different. We came home and we went, whoa, what happened to the yard? And voila, look at this. It looks amazing compared with where we started. We do still have a few patches that I'm going to have to hand seed. It just seems like we didn't get much or any germination in these areas with the overseed. You can tell there's just nothing there. So I've got a plan for those areas, but broadly, I feel like the yard really responded super well. We struggled quite a bit with germination, and I've got some ideas on how to improve that. But we did get a little bit here. You can see some of these areas started to germinate germinate. You might remember this area, it was actually horrible. I mean, it just looked mostly dead. And this area is looking really good. We've got a couple of bald patches. Again, no germination on the seed. So we'll have to do some strategy there to figure out how to get those areas to grow again. But this whole area broadly is looking so much better. It's pretty wild to me that we started with a lawn that honestly looked pretty bad, like it had been severely neglected, even though it was just basically a new lawn that needed some nurturing. But removing all that dead grass and then giving this a good boost with a deep water, some fertilizer, and an overseed, I feel like it's a pretty good looking yard. I think probably for summertime, there's probably not a lot more that we're going to do this season. We may try to spot seed some of these areas with some germinated seed and see if we can get it to take by adding a little bit of soil. Otherwise, I feel like it's fertilized. We just need to water it, mow it, and enjoy it. One thing I feel like in hindsight didn't work in our favor was the cool rain. We actually just didn't have enough time for the seed to germinate. It takes a little bit longer than that. To do it again, I would probably sprout the seed first and then apply it, and we'd probably get rapid germination and a good growth. I feel like the germination was pretty spotty, which is a problem with not pre-sprouting the seeds. They tend to float away, or they get wet and dry, but they just never really sprout. In fact, a lot of times you'll find that seed the next season hiding somewhere when it gets good and wet long enough to actually germinate. If you're like me and in the past you've had spotty or blemished yards and they kind of look cruddy most of their time and you don't really get to enjoy them, I hope you'll give this process a try on your yard. It is a little bit laborious, but once you know the few simple steps that you can do, it's pretty amazing what a couple week transformation in a yard can be.